Hello everyone, welcome to tonight's episode. Tonight's episode is important to me personally. It's an idea that I feel I developed as I lived in this life. I want to speak about two major ideas. One, what is the great work? What does that sentence or phrase imply? And what did it imply and what does it imply now? And the second, I want to share with the audience how the term advanced communicator arose to me and why I would say for the past 6 years to advance human communication has become a sort of existential inspiration for me, at least. Now, all stories are technically films, and films are scenes. So I would say that these ideas, they focus on the efforts of intelligence as a response to image. I remember it was in 2015 where the idea of the advanced communicator arose to me. There was the view that there was communication, the concept of a communicator, that was very common to me. But something happened that I started to notice that any idea you put the word advanced in front of suggests the future. So in wondering about the future of human communication, it is unavoidable our own advancement in it. So eventually communication will advance, whether we do something about it now, whether we do something about it 100 years from now, whether we do nothing 1,000 years, people come and do something about it. Either way, the moment you notice something, you can respond to it in some sense. Now something interesting happened. But as I began wondering about communication and the advanced communicator, I wrote a sentence, guys, 2 sentences where these two ideas of the advanced communicator and the pilot of consciousness, I can tell you these two ideas struck me like lightning. Now, the advanced communicator, a sentence I wrote early on for it was that the advanced communicator is the advanced communication of the universal sector. And for the pilot of consciousness, a sentence that I wrote was that the pilot of consciousness navigates the whole plane of existence. Overall, between these two archetypes, I saw the advanced communicators as being like an airplane. If you saw this world as an airplane, the advanced communicators are the stewardess, are the hostesses. Those who are asking if you want apple juice or orange juice and taking care of what is going on inside the plane. Now, what is going on outside of the plane, especially, is the job of the pilot. And so the pilot is navigating the whole plane of existence to a degree that the pilot's mistake is everybody's mistake. This is why when a pilot lands a plane, whoever you are, you should just start clapping, you know? You should start clapping that one person didn't make a mistake. You know, the pilot moving that moment didn't make a mistake. But anyways, so the idea of the advanced communicator fits in also with the pilot of consciousness. Now, to the great work, to really, what is the vision? What is the vision of advancing communication if we were trying to fathom what would it look like, the advancement of communication? One outcome is that something strange happens. Right now we are using our communication But in the future, we may become such pure minds that we may be our communication instantly. So we may get to a point as a species in the future, potentially, where nobody has a body. Every person's body of manifestation is evoked. Just like how, I don't know, you remember yourself from, I don't know, let's say you remember a memory from years ago. Instantly, the sense of self, the moment, the image, the sensations, and all of that is there in your inner realm. Okay, so I'm saying the outer realm is more going to become like the inner realm, which technically is another way of saying that man first didn't have a mind, then had a mind, then went into his mind. And so that's where the advanced communicators come in. Really, it's kind of like a riddle. Let's say you want an advanced civilization. You know, let's say even if it's possible, not possible, that we don't know. But let's say if we wanted an advanced civilization, how would we get one? Only if individuals begin behaving in more advanced ways. That is the only way an advanced civilization comes about. Now, how does behavior change? Based on the story you're fed. So language and communication is the only way, the only thing that requires to change at least the minimum requirement for something to change for an advanced civilization to occur. Because the whole word advanced, you see, anytime that word comes in front of something, that means beyond expectation. An advanced warrior is not a regular warrior, it's beyond expectation. And so can we envision a future where there's advanced communicators? Human beings that have noticed they're not just an object, have noticed they're not just a subject. They are the universe, the universal sector's eyes. This vision of the advanced communicator evolved, especially in I would say in these past 2 years. The idea really evolved to a point where I envisioned a place in the future. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this, but if you're a billionaire, if you're a trillionaire, just feeling charitable, maybe somebody can move towards this, regardless of who does it. But the idea is, so the Hall of Advanced Communication. The Hall of Advanced Communication. I pretty much infuse the idea of a coliseum, like a gladiator arena, with the idea of the School of Athens, with the idea of a parliament. That means, can you imagine a parliament of philosophers at the center of a coliseum, double the size, like a giant coliseum, let's say in the future we build it, and so everybody is watching what? The Hunger Games of not human beings fighting one another, the Hunger Games of the greatest ideas. You see, we should have a gladiator arena of discourse, you know? And so the reason I said these three things of the School of Athens and the Parliament, what I mean is the School of Athens was a place where philosophers from around the world, from different parts of the world would come and speak. And back in the day, there was no media, there was no TV. Listening to a conversation, listening to two philosophers speak was like, like waiting in line for the Star Wars movie when it was first coming out or something, you know? So it was, before films, our voices were inner films. When you look at the human being, You can't say it's the strongest creature in the universal sector. You can't say it's the, you know, biggest creature. I'm just trying to say that what human beings have as an ability is engagement. You know, before giving this talk, I went through this drive-through. I was at this Tim Hortons, this coffee place, and for a moment while I was waiting to get my coffee, I was just looking outside, looking from the window at the people sitting in this coffee shop. And it blew my mind. Let me tell you, first of all, a lot of people are, I would say, they are just passing time. You know, they're passing through time. I would say most people are just dwelling in the moment, you know. But what it was I noticed pretty much everybody was on their phone. But what it is it's like, think about it. Particles that were not conscious gathered together over time became a complexity that now is curious about the world. What we know is that evolution creates multidimensional curiosity. It leads to that outcome. And human beings, we are informed, like sometimes I feel it's like after the person's done eating, their mind becomes hungry. After all the physiological needs, from the sociological idea of Maslow's hierarchy, as you go up this pyramid of requirements, people should just Google Maslow's hierarchy, it helps if you don't know what I'm talking about. But what it is as you go up, after your body has done its great work, which is to feed itself. So after your body is done eating, now your mind, the hunger of the mind's opportunity in the conscious waking state begins. I feel whoever you are on the planet, whatever you think is right and wrong, whatever you think you're doing, which is at whatever level, you know, any person can do anything and in their mind be able to see the probability of there being people who are doing that same thing in better ways and people doing that thing in less better ways. What that means is there is always a way. It's just that we haven't found that way, you know? This vision I had of the Hall of Advanced Communicators, I also saw this wall, this giant wall, writing all those who have stepped into, let's say, the School of Athens 2.0, the actual building in the future. And so this idea with the parliament, pretty much when you look at politics, of course you see, for example, you look at the UK parliament, someone who I think he's one of the coolest people on the planet, John Berg, what's his name? John Bercow? I could be wrong, but he was the Speaker of the House. And pretty much what it is two sides of the same coin, and the neutral middle side controlling it. So it would be a situation where, imagine a room filled with, I don't know, let's say 40 people, okay, in the middle of a Colosseum. Imagine Greek Colosseum, like from the movie Gladiator or whatever. Imagine something like that. Now imagine in the center where there was the sand and the gladiators fighting, it's a parliament, kind of like chairs in a parliament with two sides, okay? Let's say we make it a sort of yin-yang kind of style, like interior, like the shape or whatever. So what it would be is that one side would be all the advanced communicators trying to support the view of the unknown, and the other side would be the known. I mean, this hasn't happened yet, but in my inner realms, I see all of education and knowledge in the future branching out into two. They say knowledge is a tree. Let me tell you, it starts from one branch, then that one branch becomes two branches. It starts with one trunk, then two branches. Then everything else arises. And those two branches are unknown studies or known studies. We can either study the unknown, what we can't see, the unobservable universe, or we can study the observable universe and find patterns and develop patterns on it. So I see in the future pretty much the whole species being engaged in the greatest conversations, discussions of what is known and what is unknown here. Now, also in some talks, I spoke about the advanced communicators that was much more further ahead, where you know how we have like public servants, like firemen, paramedics, police officers, public servants, right? These public servants are focused on, you can say, the physiology, the health and safety of the person, right? But I thought, what if in the future we have advanced communicators as a sort of ultimate public servant, that is, that they are advanced communicators, are serving the public's mind, That means it's like they are police officers for miscommunication causing conflict, And really you become, I would say, in my books at least, anybody who can discriminate between the inner realms and the outer realms, and has also experienced truly their inner realms, rendering the whole inner and outer non-dual. There comes a contentment. The greatest strength is not belief, doesn't come from belief or disbelief. I would say it comes from direct experience. That's how skill stays with you. That means if somebody wants to say something, let's say somebody wants to say something, whatever, they may use language, but unless they have experienced something, they won't be able to retain or remember that story. So a lot of things I remember because somehow they relate to something I directly experienced in this life. The advanced communicators are human beings who are like, what do we do here? It's like, what do we do in this void on a rock in the middle of nowhere? And pretty much man can do two things. Either build in the outer realms, which turns into the infrastructure of an advanced civilization, or to build in the inner realms, which means we are either moving matter or we are moving stories. We are either moving allowing matter to move first, then there's an implication of the story changing, or the story changes before the matter does, and that's another sort of change. So pretty much this relationship of a self in a world. Now, if the world moves quicker than you don't feel you have free will. It's so easy to feel that the whole universe is like the will of one source. When you're being pushed, of course, why should we? It's like there's no need to believe in yourself. That means if let's say you're in a you're in a car on a bus, you don't need to drive the bus when you're on the bus. I would say when the world moves you before yourself, two things happen. Either you feel empty or you feel like God. When I say you feel like God, it's because when you don't move, what is moving? Let's say right now you define yourself as an angry person or a happy person or a sad person or whatever, some sort of definition you give yourself, Now, if you are not angry, are you an angry person? The salvation of the species is really in these two words, I would say. First, advanced communication, then the advanced communicator. So first, you gotta care for at least advanced communication. You gotta care for the world or the self. If you don't care for yourself, at least care for the world. If you don't care for yourself and you don't care for the world, then it's as if like rest. Usually you need people who don't care for anything. You need to rest, because the mind can't process. This world is so big that after looking at it a while, eventually it will find itself in some outline. So when the person looks at life and sees no meaning, it means there's a collision of pressures in the moment. Now let's look at this whole thing from a more different angle. Let's say right now communication had stopped. There was some sort of law, let's say, that made it illegal to create words. Let's imagine communication stopped. How long would it pass? How many centuries, decades until we would want to break that shell? They say, there's this idea, they say a snake that doesn't shed its skin, it dies. And it's this strange thing where if attention doesn't step out of the language it has chosen to be, when the direct experience has moved beyond that language, it will die. The person can die in a limited linguistic, this may be too intense what I'm saying, but I'm pretty much saying like language has to change. Ludwig Wittgenstein says the limits of my language are the limits of my world, And so that inner world has to expand. Ideologically, at least. That means right now is not a time to rebel physically. It is now the mind's game. Ever since we became self-aware, Gandhi, I believe, understood this. Why he said non-violence. Because, you cannot fight, you cannot, get rid of the flames of a burning house by, setting more fire to the setting. That means sometimes one person, I don't know what the term would be, one person has to accept a loss before they have lost in order to prevent the actual loss, sometimes. Anytime any human being wonders about the unknown and is honest with the unknown, your communication advances. There should be renaissances in language every day. There should be so many new words being generated every day from all the different experiences. You see, we are like bees in a hive, but we are bees that don't know what to do in the hive. Do you know? Like there is like this half-built like civilization 1.0 hive made, okay? And we're bees, right? And bees that are flying around, acquiring different experiences. And it's as if we are bees that are just not using what we find throughout our experience and giving it to the hive. Think about it. Like the bee may not even be conscious. Of course, not the way like human beings are conscious, but I'm saying like the bee may not have an individualism to itself. Many animals right now you may look at them and the animal may be walking around in the forest, but the animal may have no sense that it is separate from the environment. Maybe only in fear. Maybe only in states of fear the animal feels like it is not the whole environment. You know? Think of it this way, as if you're a duck. Imagine you're a duck, okay? And a duck just swimming on the surface of the water, okay? You know? And the surface of this pond. And suddenly you notice ripples hitting you. And you notice like, okay, what's going on? And you notice like another duck has entered the pond, you know? And so it's gonna be duck wars. You know, an earthquake. Oh man, this is silly. Anyways, back to the idea of the advanced communicator. The duck in the pond notices the ripples. You as a human being must notice the ripples of your environment. Now the ripples of your environment come to you in different ways. There's the outer realm activity, for example, my voice and sound is coming from the environment to you. It's like if you were a duck on the pond, like it's a ripple, right? Now there are certain ripples that when the duck moves, it creates. And if you can discriminate between what is a meaning that requires you there and what is a meaning that doesn't require you there, it really, to some degree, gets rid of the inner realm suffering of life. That means, I'll give you an example. Let's say you were a person, you're walking, and somebody comes and says something, something very negative to you, you know? And you hear them, and you don't react, imagine. You don't respond. And the person's like, what is this? Why isn't this person responding? And the reason you're not responding is because you know this person doesn't have your eyes. Do you know? That means no one can know themselves better than themselves. The field of the mind, which is in collective jurisdiction, that may be known, you know? But nobody has your eyes. And when you realize that, your life becomes important again. There is now something to do when you actually care for your own sight, not just what's in it temporarily. Because I can't tell you how many nights I've sat down and I've thought, okay, let's say all human beings got their desires. Where would it lead? And it's like at the edge of the individual desire is the collective desire. After every individual got whatever they wanted, you know, let's say for the Christmas of their lifetime, whatever gift they got. And what then? What then, let's say the whole species wants money. Let's say we all were trillionaires. Let's say money wasn't a problem. What then? After at least resolving or pulling the strings of your desires on an individual level and reaching the end, you will notice there is bigger things. Now the bigger things in life are events, living events. And I'm telling you, there is a requirement to consider space. You can't attain mastery until you have confronted the duality of the system. That means if I wanted to, let's say, become someone who, I don't know, learns to fight with a shield. Let's say you're back in the day a warrior and you have to fight with a shield. You have to learn to fight with a shield. So it's as if like there's certain moments where that shield is shielding you, but there's certain moments you should use that shield as a weapon too. You know? Just pretty much the chaos and order of the system. Become familiar with it, and it's not that there's mastery, but there's less fear. The fear of the novice dies, at least. I feel in any craft, in anything that is a person is trying to attain mastery, there is a transformation point. There is a point where the person fails to a point where it's like, okay, this is failure the norm, like, and the person fails until one day, wait a minute, what am I looking at? Could this be success? I would say something even as a surprise. The most advanced civilization that the efforts of all pilots and advanced communicators are going to. It's inconceivable. That means the most, if we were to be honest as human beings, to truly fathom the most advanced civilization, that would mean the velocity, not only incredible multidimensionality and freedom to move between dimensions, but incredible speed. And so we're going to have a time where people are going to experience in cyberspace speeds that I honestly feel cyberspace is going to become the worst drug. We don't realize that. But it's going to be one of those things, because there is this thing that a person who takes a drug gets exposed to level of content sometimes. For example, you go and study Native American metaphysics, it's like their metaphysics was very plant-based. It's very strange. It's like a lot of, human beings ate whatever they could find, You can say taste was a psychedelic experience even. The first person who ate an apple and tasted an apple, and perception that was never there before, And I would say, I don't know, there's moments where I feel I am a self in a world, like right now, there's a person speaking to you, but there's moments where I feel I am simultaneously the whole world moving. And if I don't choose to segment my attention, it is the whole event. And it's in those moments where I would say the advanced communicator has become the advanced communication of the universal sector. I am telling you, there is no such thing as normal. There has never been. There has just been eyes agreeing. You see, the outer realms, there is forces. I am not dismissing scientific findings. There's gravitational force, electromagnetic, the weak and strong nuclear forces. So the outer realms is like we are finding ourselves inside a car. But the inner realms, you're not inside a system. You are just present. Of course, my background is Persian, but there was a Vishnu temple beside my house. And they had this very nice sort of, carpeted flooring with this shrine room with like windows shining light in a unique way. I remember I went to this Vishnu temple once and there was nobody there. Like there were people there, but there was nobody in the main meditation hall of it there. And I remember I went there and I sat down and I was just looking at one of the statues. I don't remember which one it was. I think it was Rama. I was just looking at a statue. And I created the term MTC, MT-C. We are sight and space inseparable. So awareness and space are inseparable. It's like mind and space are inseparable, and body and matter are inseparable. And we have to have a notion of space before we can be something in that space. It's like, imagine a soccer player that doesn't know the rules of the game, but is in a professional soccer game match. You know, that person wouldn't know who they are because they don't have the context set. So things that people, you are not familiar with the context, and then the concept is given, oh my God, I don't understand this. But things where the context is given, then the concept is shared, oh my God, I instantly understand this. And so I will tell you, that's one thing I at least use, where I speak of the context first, then I evoke the concepts in my speech. At least I try to. You know, the poet Rumi has this quote. He says, out beyond ideas of right doing and wrong doing, there's a place. I will meet you there. And when the soul sits on that grass, the world is too full to talk about. That place where the poet Rumi from, 700, 800 years ago, he says, I'll meet you there, somewhere beyond right and wrong, as if there's a place. I will tell you that advanced communicators are standing right there. No longer this archaic judgment system that people are good, people are bad. No. We are attributeless attention. Our decisions evoke us into those patterns. Let's say you have the heart of a saint, but you're born in a family of thieves. Or let's say you have the heart of a thief and you're born in a family of saints. You know? Let's say you have the heart of a saint, and I don't know, let's say like a movie, like you're born in this family of like some heist family or something, you know? And right now, I'm pretty sure the audiences can tell what kind of TV shows I watch. But here's the thing. I'm just saying that right and wrong are decisions. Morality is a decision. And so if there is someone suffering in front of you, and you could have lived your whole life thinking you're a good person, but you make the wrong decision, you don't serve the life force that is struggling. If you don't help life, you don't know you're alive yet. If the living universe doesn't have a value for you, and you have rendered yourself as a meaningless object, that is extinction before extinction. Materialism is extinction, ideological extinction, it's inner extinction. Everything is being communicated. Every person, let us say like a character in a multiplayer online video game, in front of our eyes, we are in the same map. Okay, let's play along with this. Go along with this metaphor. So we're in the same map. 8 billion people have logged into their characters and are in the same map. Okay, same physical, observable universe in front of our eyes. Now, when a person closes their eyes, it's like the attention behind the screen. Our inner realms are different. Our outer realm is the same. Communication is creating a bridge between the inner realms to the outer realms. And so advanced communication could probably be that it speeds up maybe to a point where there is no bridge. Maybe we will be advanced communicators because in the future we're going to be one mind. Who knows? You know? There's this story where there's this, I heard this online somewhere. There's this, there's this story where there's this priest, this very kind of priest that is in some sense exactly everything that is being said in a very robotic fashion is following. Now, this priest, at the same time, right beside the church, there is like some place where prostitution is going on. This is a story, guys, keep this in mind. Where some sort of, unfortunate situation is going on. Now, what happens is this priest, right outside of the window of his room in the church, would see that in the building where the whole you can say, from the priest's eyes, acts of sin were taking place, right? There is a prostitute who, this prostitute at the end of the day would just come into a room, she would stand in front of the mirror and she would just pray. Can you imagine? As if you wake up and live that kind of life, then at the end of it, your attention is on the one and only, in some sense. So this priest, he goes about his whole day doing everything in accordance, and suddenly what happens is, not suddenly, but like every day he's coming and from the window he's just looking at the girl. And the girl every day she's looking, and the girl is looking at praying, and like from the theme of the story, she's looking at God, you know? Long story short, what happens is both of them die. Something happens, a tragic incident happens, both of them die, they're at the pearly gates. The priest is about to walk into the gate, suddenly a voice stops him. And then he just suddenly sees the prostitute, she goes in first into heaven. And this priest is shocked and he shouts to the voice and he says, why is it that I don't get to go in? My whole life I've been going by the book, doing everything like this. And then it's here where pretty much this is where the moral of the story is, where the voice says, you your whole life did good actions, but your attention wasn't on the good. You know? Wasn't on the source. She was in it, she went through so much messed up, effed up, situations, but her attention was on the source. So she got to go to the source first. Of course, keep in mind this was a religious story, and some story with that context. But pretty much the idea was that it's not just your body's life that is important; it is the sincerity and the true attention of your mind's life also. Now let's say right now I'm like, okay, I'm an advanced communicator, yay, Let's say we consider 8 billion advanced communicators. People entertain this. Now, what do? What is the end result for the advanced communicator? You hear the voice of selves in the world, and you hear the voice of the world. You know, right now as I'm speaking, so many processes in the inside the biological body, like underneath my skin, the heart is beating, you know, all the organs are functioning. There's the cardiovascular system, nervous system. And all of this stuff is happening, yet I am not moving that. Right now, all that I'm doing is just sitting and speaking. But all of these activities are happening. The heart is beating without me telling the heart to beat. You know, I'm breathing without thinking about breathing. The stomach digests without you telling it to digest. So the body is involuntarily continuing. So if we were to think of the world's continuity, a massive amount of it is involuntary. It is a certain range of it that's voluntary, where if we choose if to be conscious, let's say we are that creature that's separated from the environment and suddenly looked at the environment again and then created the environment in our minds in another way. We pretty much copy paste the world, and imagination was born. Relaxation time says, will the advanced communicator be or not be? That is the question. Well, if the advanced communicator is the advanced communication of the universal sector, technically when I have created these terms in the sense that they can never lose. That means even if the advanced communicator fails, the advanced communicator was just extending what the universe was doing through a focal point. Sometimes, you know how like Jedis would take out their lightsaber and like suddenly turn it on. Sometimes I feel the moment my eyes open in the morning, the lightsaber, you know, the lightsaber is suddenly turned on. You know, you know, and my attention feels like a beam. That means it's like, I wouldn't say it's at the level of X-Men Cyclops, but when I look at something, it's as if meaning is not only being entering, but it's also going out. It's as if, you know what's strange? It's like it's not enough for light. Let's say light entered your eyes, but it stopped right as it entered like the pupil, right at the inside. Let's say the light beam went 2 millimeters inside your pupil, do you know, and then stopped. You would still not see the light. I'm just saying that if it doesn't make contact with the nerve, you don't see it. So our sight is the effect. And so it's the unknown cause. It's the instantaneity of light, attention, and moment. My attention is myself. I've been saying this in these talks. We are not language. This is why the advanced communicator is not limited. You're limited by language if you think you're a thought. It's as if in the future, imagine somebody comes up to the advanced communicator like great public servants are walking in the street, let's say, like knights of the mind of civilization, you know? And somebody comes and says to the advanced communicator walking by and says, the world's about to end. And the advanced communicator laughs. Kids still feel that the world is in language. It's going to be on that level. It's like there is so much beyond what we simulate as our meaning. And true mysticism is really, you don't take the chess move first. Because then it's not a cooperation. Then it's not a game, I would say. That means if you want a living universe, if you want to continue in a, I don't want to, okay, let me say it differently. If your attention is on the living, your inner realms will be alive. If your attention is on the inanimate, things will be inanimate. That means if you drive towards a cliff, yeah, you're going to reach nothingness. Do you know, if you drive against on the road, you're just going to find new towns. I once had a very shocking, this was years ago, but shocking insight that the world owes me nothing. And I could tell you that feeling is like, imagine some system where you have been desiring endlessly. For the first time you see, where has it been written? As if was this life a sort of contract, you know? As if cause and effect, they sign papers before they... The advanced communicator is pretty much, if everybody's planetary, the advanced communicators are entertaining themselves as galactic, you know. If everybody is identifying with galactic, the advanced communicators would be identifying with the universal picture. The advanced communicator, guys, actually before I go towards the great work, the advanced communicator is the newest, the most advanced natural phenomena of the universal sector. Right now on this planet, we're the most advanced being. It's like, what animal surprises us more than we surprise it? Maybe dolphins, but something I didn't know, but it seems to be the case, that dolphins actually, they were the creatures that came on land, but then went back into the water. As if the dolphins, their evolutionary line was they came onto the land and they're like, okay, we're not ready, you know, and they went back into the water, you know. We are nature's expression, really. The advanced communicator is just conscious. You're nature's expression. That's technically an advanced state of communication. That means anybody who, let's say, sings in the shower, you are doing an activity which, compared to all the animals on this planet, is unfathomable to them. The sophistication. The sophistication of the relationship we have, just the fact that we notice, we have in our dictionaries the term unreal, is unreal. in my personal vision, uh, I've spoken about Civilization 2.0. Okay. I just noticed something. Let's say we have one person. This one person is a communicator. They require another world to be able to tell themselves they have advanced their communication. So to advance is like you can say, let's say, a kingdom, and this kingdom's borders are expanding. Now let's say we're trying to expand the borders, the walls of the kingdom of the human mind. So individuals can't advance unless there is others, other realities. Now, the social setting means the advanced communication means it has to lead to an advanced community. A community of an advancement that is actually looking at the future, but through the lens of the present. I mean, even if I hadn't said the term advanced communicator, eventually the idea would have arose. I'm telling you, sometimes when I look at language, I feel, look at how many different flowers there are in a garden, how many different kinds of plants. And then I wonder, look at how many different types of thoughts. Look at how many ways eyes have opened up to the world. Look at how many ways eyes have contained the world in a story, in a narrative. Look at how many ways the eyes doubt the world. You know, I would be very curious, you know, for me, the statistics, the world global statistics that we find, I entertain them, but I don't consider them accurate. The only statistic I would say would be like the most fascinating survey for me would be to see the live stream of 8 billion human beings, but their emotions. Imagine right now you could go on a website and you could see what people in a country are feeling. You could see what people in a country are not feeling. Let's say through this global emotional live stream, suddenly you realize when countries were at war, suddenly on the live stream it showed the emotions of every person in the nation getting scared. Do you know what I mean? Like suddenly the color changing, you know? And if we were sensitive, I would say the emotional level of human beings is until they realize they have to accept to advance. You have to accept where you are, or you can't even. That literally means it's like before you even, let's say you're on the staircase towards paradise, and so your foot is on one step, but you put your other foot on another step. Now technically this foot should totally leave behind the previous step and move on, but if the person wants to get attached to the previous step, they can't even take the next step, you know. I feel human beings should look in the mirror and look in the mirror long enough until they can actually command who they see in the mirror. It may be a strange idea, but a human being can command themselves. As if technically survival is how you are your own commander. What does that mean? Sorry, it's just open. Guys, I'm not saying it's like, it's not to a sense that it's like the advanced civilization is already here. In our inner realms, its potential is here. If we treat what we have as advanced, if we treat right now what we have as like, yo, this is the best thing ever, then it's done. We're done. The future is like, I have nothing else to show you. You think this is it? Okay. So I'm back, guys. Hold on. All right, back to it. So, guys, maybe I should start off from a different way of sharing this. We have regular soccer players, and then we have great soccer players. Now, if we were to take communication as a sport, communication as a sport of the mind, and if we treat communication as a sport, you got to be a good sport. That means regardless of whatever discourse, dialogue, at the end of it, you're required to be a good sport. Someone who honors the moment where the moment is existing, how the moment is existing. So if communication is a sport, let us say that we are looking at the human being alive in 2020 as an average soccer player of the mind, let's say, an athlete of the mind. Now, we are trying to say we want the greatest soccer players at the shortest time. Because simply we don't know how much time we have to presume it's not a lot, just to also have taken care of that angle. So we want great mental athletes. Now, what happens is there are soccer players who, let's say they're born with skill, it's natural, but then there's average soccer players who go alone on a pitch and just endlessly kick the ball, like of course I've never been a professional soccer player, but I was on the high school team, striker, and I'll tell you, there was a time where I would go to this place and just kick the ball to the crossbar. I had seen this soccer player named Quaresma who does this trick Robona, and I would keep trying to kick this ball to the crossbar. And so you cultivate skill that way, where the average has to leave the crowd, go and attain and cultivate skill, and then come back to town, And then one can say there is some great soccer players who they didn't have skill, they didn't have talent, but they were around other great soccer players. Imagine Ronaldo becomes your coach. It's like, who wouldn't listen? Ronaldinho, sorry. Ronaldinho, guys, is the greatest of the greatest. So anyways, the average soccer player can't keep playing the same game. The individual has to train. So think of it this way. if you're in a collective system, your training's collective. But if you're alone in this world, then your training is solo. And so let us say you are someone who wanted to master life. Just entertain what I'm saying here. Let's say you wanted to master life. So that would mean you would have to train. Let's say like a Shaolin martial art practice, you would have to train. So let's say you wanted to train your life and you suddenly notice every moment you are. Every moment you have been preparing for the next moment, whether you consciously know or not. Think of it as if in this video game of life, we're trying to cultivate existential and experiential mastery points. And really, I don't know how people can even entertain the idea of a teacher. It's like everything is the whole moment for your sight. So that means it's like, is the person just hearing what I'm saying, or do you hear also every other noise that's in your environment? So the whole moment is the lesson of the every moment, pretty much. It's like light enters our eyes and a subject steps out. And voices arise. Anyways, guys, I think I've spoken enough about the archetype of the advanced communicator. I think I've painted it enough. Now I'll tell you about the great work. So this was something that happened where I've actually written and published this strange book that I kept unedited, and I don't know why. It probably, wasn't a wise choice, but at the same time, not that it wasn't a wise choice, but I think it was just an intuitive decision. And so the title of this book was called The Great Work. Later on, someone came and told me that the great work is an idea in alchemy. Then I realized their great work was pretty much enlightenment from their view. The transformation of nature into the ultimate. Pretty much all mystery schools, they're wondering about a mystery. What else could they do? Literally, the school is teaching a mystery. It's like, yeah, this is mysterious, that's mysterious too. Also, this is mysterious. Take notes, kids. Everything's mysterious, So anyways, I wrote this book, The Great Work. That book was inspired out of midday. I was in my room, out of nowhere, I saw in my inner realms this giant, just a picture, just like a film, imagine. So imagine I'm a person going about my day, suddenly I see a film, just a clip. Imagine a YouTube clip, but a YouTube clip that is occurring, that it doesn't matter if your eyes are open or closed, you'll see it, Sorry guys, I'm just gonna wait for these NASCAR cars to hurry up, I thought NASCAR cars were supposed to be fast. Sorry guys, I don't know if people can hear. There's car noises from outside the window. So anyways, I see this vision, I see this clip in my inner realms of just me being sight in space, as if I'm looking from space. And I see this meteor, this giant, what would you call it, like asteroid or something, and it breaks. And as it breaks, that was the first time my mind saw a parallel to that whole rock being like a bundle of souls. And when the asteroid broke, all those fragments fell, So the whole book is this strange, this I don't know, you could say, a sort of it's like a communication from my unconscious mind to my own conscious mind, which I've made public, where I wrote it down and I shared it. You know? It's an odd book, I would say that. It's not a common book. It's like for me, it's like something where my whole life I'm trying to decode. But anyways, so the idea of the great work was that human beings understand that when it's as if like if you saw the left brain hemisphere as an inverted triangle with a circle in it, the 3 points of the inverted triangle would be self, would be other, and would be all that is, which is another way of saying, you can say, God. All that is and God are technically the same. Like from the religious view, God is all that is, and from the non-religious view, because to the religious view, God is all that is, it's as if like all that is God, So anyways, the left brain hemisphere is the inverted triangle with a circle in it, and it's connecting these 3 points. The circle is a metaphor for nature. The right brain hemisphere is a circle with an inverted triangle inside it. So the first one, the left brain hemisphere, was an inverted triangle with a circle in it. This is all in the book, The Great Work. And the right brain hemisphere is a circle with the inverted triangle in it. Now, the difference is that the circle is a fractal of every point. So that means, even though I speak about duality, everything is kind of, painted in duality, even human morality and justification and just even hate and love, joy and suffering, all that. Those are dualisms, but I would say in this model, it's as if on your right brain hemisphere is the world, and your left brain hemisphere is how this world has fragmented, how this moment of natural being has fragmented into, yo, I'm a self, yo, those are others, yo, this is a world, this is all everything, with all of this. It's pretty much just realizing you're a character in a story. The left brain hemisphere is a character in a story. The right brain hemisphere is like, doesn't have time for that. Okay. So, yeah, I would say, you only want salvation because you don't have it. So as long as you want it, you won't have it. Because when you are thinking to yourself, you want something that isn't there, you're first telling yourself it isn't there. So that means soteriology is endless relaxation time, when you say that in the chat section. That means it's like, it's like, I mean, I understand the significance. Yeah, you're treating it as if it's a simulation where there's a certain strategy to get out. And the strategy doesn't come from you, or at least man can try to find a way to get close to that strategy. The idea of salvation is really, you're not on earth. It's like you're thinking of afterlife, but it's not the afterlife now, it's life now, So salvation, I don't know, maybe it's like, maybe it is significant. I mean, the idea of salvation is so complex. So when you say soteriology, that means it's like, what conclusion can you have on the idea of salvation? If you entertain the divine, it's not from you. That means you're waiting. Soteriology is the same as waiting in the, you know, waiting in God's office. It's a waiting game. Salvation is a waiting game. Salvation is like someone sitting on a chair and like, when will someone lift me up from this chair? Oh my God, when? Could it be? Could it be that, that, you know? And you realize, no, 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 no. Even if someone could, if the person was to just look at themselves, they would realize before they want anybody to save them, they should save them. That means if you don't care for yourself, why should others? If your mind deserves to wait this whole life for truth, then, you know, sure. You can wait as long as you want, you know, and it doesn't matter where you are. So many things, so many narratives will arise and the person will see them void. My whole thing is, guys, that we can only advance our communication by realizing we're not limited to it. That means if you hold a wrench in your hand or a screwdriver and you think the screwdriver is a part of your hand, you're limited. You know? Imagine Tony Stark forgot that he's the Iron Man suit. He's inside the Iron Man suit. He just looked in the mirror, like imagine he suddenly forgot, and he looked in the mirror and he's like, yo, this is what I look like, this is what I am, you know? But regardless of his belief on the outer realms, the inner realms is. It's like nature has its design. That means I feel we are kind of like trees, but our mind is rooted in how existence is instantly here. So anyways, guys, this geometrical view of the left brain hemisphere, right brain hemisphere, I saw these two when the mind gets rolling, both of these actually move and it becomes a three-dimensional experience. Okay guys, so I'm gonna pause here in the chat section. Dan says, what do you mean by the Tony Stark analogy, mistaking linguistic construction for one's identity? I said yes. How would you overcome that? Okay, so the audience is curious, how do you overcome the Iron Man suit of language? Well, that's what I'm saying. You have to remember or notice a moment where you were never language. You see, there's a kind of freedom that you have to fight and free yourself. And then there's a type of freedom where from the beginning you were free. It didn't matter. You know? That freedom is literally like a child looking at the world before language, name, content, and all of that comes. So technically, we were born outside of the linguistic simulation, the language Iron Man suit. The Iron Man suit of language. And so we have entered it. Right now I am speaking in the Iron Man suit to you. I am a person, do you see? No. If we're talking about freedom from the linguistic simulation, just look at the idea. That means you were never a thought. All of language is a thought. It implies that truth was here before you. So before language, your attention knows how to be alive. That means if you were to just sit whatever amount, even, I don't know if people have tried this, but if let's say you were someone where you were like, okay, I'm gonna wait, let's say there's a long lineup, you have to wait, and you're like, I'm gonna wait without having a single opinion on this line. And you just wait, you know, without a single thought. And you notice people getting angry, people turning around, people like, what is this? What's taking so long? People arguing with the cashier, but you're just standing there as if nothing was ever wrong. It was the impatience of the desire of the hand that wanted it too quick. It's technically a sincerity that's synonymous with your simplest way of being. Okay, so Dan in the chat section, I hope you're listening. I'm going to ask you a question. Is there anything wrong when Tony Stark knows he's not the Iron Man suit? When Tony Stark knows he is not the Iron Man suit, is there anything wrong? No. He uses the Iron Man suit when he needs to. He gets out of the Iron Man suit when he wants to, check on his wife or something. So, do you see what? No. I'm just saying, it's the obsession that the Iron Man suit has to be destroyed, which is a sort of illusion, counter illusion, where the yogic impatience has misstepped into. I would say what I'm saying is like there's nothing wrong with Tony Stark using the Iron Man suit when it's necessary, but to live in the Iron Man suit 24/7, that's ridiculous. Literally, his body is gonna get destroyed if he lives in the Iron Man suit. That means if Tony Stark lives in the Iron Man suit, he has to question his sanity. So if you think you're just a character stuck in a story in this changing world, of course you suffer. So I'm saying there's nothing wrong. Language should be seen as a technology, which is the ultimate conclusion of it. It's a technology. You misuse it, you suffer. You think you are the technology, you suffer. But if you know you're not the technology and you also know what you're doing with the technology, then there is no problem. I hope that cleared it up, guys. Like, pretty much I'm saying the whole thing is like, if you can use the technology properly, if you can if you can see you're not language, communication can't touch you. But if you are language, communication can change you. I'm just saying, just realize how you're being the subject in the moment and notice that that subject you have been watching your whole life. In an unknown way, you have been witnessing how you have been doing everything. The great work is the advancement of the archives of human experience as it vocalizes, or even you can say inner rhythms. No, Dan, I would say the moment you realize you're not language, you automatically relax and realize what's been going on. There is no. Let me tell you, it's like if you make enlightenment synonymous with escapism, you're actually looking for a portal. So there, I will tell you, there are certain people who they don't realize it. All those people who want to see theosophists, those people interested in interdimensionality, they're actually looking for portals, not realizing the light is coming from behind their eyes. You know, the light of the inner realms is coming from behind the eyes. You know how we have body language right now? Right now, most of our expression, I mean, body language is sometimes conscious, sometimes unconscious, but we consciously speak, right? And it's vocal. I would say if we find a way that we can instantly teleport knowledge, that means the only reason I've started this podcast is because all the stuff in my inner realms, there's no way of getting it out aside from writing it, speaking it, or maybe sometimes performing it. There is no other outlet for what is going on in the content of the mind. These three things are like the only channels, these three openings, where the inner realms instantly, it can suddenly, like I think of an apple, I can instantly write apple. Do you know? Instantly the idea from just being in the river of the void and the coagulation of all the imagery around floating about, you know, suddenly I could solidify it. So I would say we should think of it in this way, that we are grabbing technically from the inner realms, we're grabbing and bringing it out to the outer realms. I would say, Dan says, why do you talk? Why do I talk? Because it's the only thing I find I could do in regards to the opportunity of the inner realms. That means either you move in the outer realms and your purpose is defined by that, either from the inner realms you're trying to bring into the outer realms and your purpose is defined. And the reason I'm talking is because I had a intent of 10,000 talks. That's it, really. I just wanted to see if it's like possible in a lifetime, if I could give 10,000 talks. The content really, it comes in accordance to where my attention goes. You know, some people try to hold structure. For me, the inner realms are like weather. You know, sometimes in the middle of the roller coaster ride, we can't know how we feel about it, about the ending of it, to even have a conclusion. I would say in my mind, somebody says teach, I would say, guys, I only see it this way. Hunter-gatherer society of the outer realm, hunter-gatherer societies of the inner realms. That's it. There's no glorification, nothing. You know, to some degree, we are looking at the ink on the paper and it's animating to something to us. Everything requires mindhood, right? And we haven't taken the mind seriously. Or maybe I should say, we could have put, or I could say the other way, we have taken the mind so seriously, we have forgotten the playfulness of the simple truths of the realm. You see, it's like the person saw chaos and smiled. And the other person was like, yo, why are you smiling? And the person's like, because if there is greater chaos, there is greater order. They are born as twins, chaos and order. That means the moment you are in your conscious mind, the weakest self, there is a greater self of you. The moment that there is an acceptance of the weakest self, simultaneously, in your unconscious, there exists the greatest self. Now, if in your conscious moment right now, you think you're the greatest self, In your unconscious exists your weakest and most chaotic self. And what we think is conscience is really an oscillation between uh, forces. For me, it's like my view is a bit intense. I see it as a battlefield, and it's in a battlefield where all human beings, 8 billion creatures, are literally being bombarded with all sorts of information, even not even in subtler ways. And in the middle of this battlefield where there's information explosions going on, it's as if some people are like, yo, what's the point of being here? I don't know. You know? Some people are like, oh man, this sword in my hand feels heavy. You know, not realizing we are in the show. We're in the field. We are in the front lines of manifestation right now. We are the first wave to arrive. The first, you can say, let's say like a solar flare, there was a solar flare that held with it intelligence. And we couldn't see this, and this flare made contact, and there was some sort of unique... It's like in front of our eyes, where we exist in a particular way. Behind our eyes, our experience is waving back and forth, from our eyes blinking to our inhalation to our exhalation to just the heart beating and whatnot, contracting. It's like it's like we have opened our eyes in the middle of the battlefield of the visible and the invisible. You know, we are the only animal that has been pulled by the mystery of the unknown this far. And all of this is a suggestion of the mind. Our minds are advancing further than us. I feel our minds are living way ahead of our bodies. Way ahead. Instantly, even. It's like, I'm telling you, if maybe we don't have teleportation technology in the outer realms, but in the inner realms, oh my god, every moment is a teleportation technology. Literally, you're teleporting from moment to moment. Yeah. Every time I sleep and I wake up, that technically feels like I just teleported. But the teleportation took 8 hours, you know? The teleportation of one conscious experiencer back into the void, suddenly conscious experiencer wakes up, you know? The great work is the greatest effort of a conscious living being in a potentially conscious living universe. That's it. You're alive once, you max it out. You max out your effort, so you start giving yourself endless archetypes, an endless mindset. What that means is you suddenly look at this life and you think about energy and you're like, I have endless energy. Let's just say, just entertain. Let's say you actually see, okay, energy is everywhere. You have energy. Now let's say that you have endless effort. You just cultivate this view. And whatever you try, it doesn't matter. the time or whatever, if you want to see the outcome, the world will move that way. The dimensions will open up, the waves will part. If you dare. Walk in ways that no one has. That is the gift. That Friedrich Nietzsche said, this German philosopher, he said, God is dead and man killed him. But I will tell you, the unknown can never die. It can't even know what dies. Every human being maxes out, literally starts living in an advanced way. That means if the person has had an ability to perceive themselves in an inefficient light, instantly have an ability, it's like, why not have the ability to see the efficient? That means if there was a who wants to be a millionaire kind of question and you had 4 choices, it's like when you choose one, you could have chosen the other ones. So they all instantly have access of potential existence. What I feel is happening, and we don't actually, there's an error here made, I would say, in how, this is a bold statement, but I feel this is where psychology could have issues with the experience of time being different to each person. Do you know? That means I don't know how many psychologists are looking at people and being like, how quick is time passing for this person? Let's say you were alive once and you wanted to see what the most advanced version of yourself would mean. What would it mean? Let's say you had no other, let's say we just suddenly found ourselves here in a world. Whoa, we're here, what is this? And so we're here without any context. We are left into creating an illusion. That means just because a creature is in a world doesn't mean that creature will ever understand the world. The world may be standing under us, but we're not understanding. We can't understand it. It's too alive to be masked. That means think of a biological human face, so many facial gestures. A mask has one gesture fixed in time. The great work is if let's say you were on a porch drinking a cup of tea in the morning, and you had a notebook beside you with a pen, and you had no intention of writing anything, but you were there, and suddenly in your inner realms, you suddenly noticed that you had seen in front of you the greatest version of yourself. And right beside it, imagine you see the worst version of yourself, the most chaotic, savage version of yourself. And you see both of these versions, the greatest, most noble, honorable version of yourself, and the most descended back into animalhood kind of version of yourself. And you see the greatest probability for efficiency and the greatest probability for inefficiency. And you see the chaotic and ordered self, let's say, they're looking at each other and suddenly they look at you. And that's where we are the unknown. That's the secret. For me, from a theological standpoint, earth was made in heaven. So everything is happening in heaven from a theological view. But I would say that would technically mean the unknown is the heaven of the known world. Everything is the known world. We're on the tip of an iceberg and we feel we know what's going on as creatures in the universe. Everything is poetry, and if it's not, then ignorance still breathes. Okay, to share a story. What story can be shared? I mean, this isn't per se a story, but it's something I envisioned in, uh, uh, you can say, a chapter of this unpublished science fiction book I'm writing. And I saw a future where human beings, something I just remembered too. The advanced communicator is not just advanced in communicating between human beings, but it's also advanced communicating with different life forms as well. So if you see somebody who's naturally good with animals, I would say they have advanced their communication in that dimension. Somehow, somewhere, maybe at some point, whether in-world or off-world. So anyways, imagine this sci-fi setting where people are just using sound jetpacks, and every sound of the jetpack, instead of like a rough noise, it's like whatever music you want. So there's music playing all the time from people's jetpacks, you know? And so let's say you use this jetpack and you go to work, and let's say you are, I mean, in my science fiction, it's set in the year 5025, and then there's 9 parallel realms to Earth. But what happens is that I had created a galactic sector to the UN where there was extraterrestrials giving speeches about human rights. Extraterrestrials were saying, we want human rights, we have lived in a human civilization, you know? And let's say so many extraterrestrials had tried to integrate in human society, so they had tried to somehow make themselves look human and all this. But pretty much the idea was that there was this extraterrestrial giving a speech that they have rights on Earth and they are members of the human civilization. And at some point in history, human civilization wasn't just for humans. We had become advanced enough to work now with the galactic sector, let's say. In it, I also had this thing where certain animals with advanced technology connected to them, like a cow with some AI thing connected to it, where the cow is standing and the cow has one scarf. There's a chapter in this about this, where the, you know, where the cow has this scarf and the cow comes and gives a very polite speech about how they deserve to be, in some sense, all the human beings who've eaten beef, all the human beings who've eaten chicken, you know, all the human beings who've been eating animals, they have to now repay all these animals who have become conscious of what we did to their ancestors, do you know? And then there's dialogues there. And by the way, there's the whole thing, the whole world, the whole realm is governed by, I called it the first multidimensional government, where it was a government governing parallel versions of Earth, and it's called the Enlightened Society. And the Enlightened Society arose when the first artist was voted in power of a nation. And the first leader of a nation, for the first time, instead of spending the budget on let us say, other funds, the leader of the nation started making the city and the nation and just the streets and everything beautiful. And for the first time, there arose jealousy. There arose jealousy, that the nations that made themselves more beautiful, they had more uh, beautiful minds come to them, let us say. And so, sorry guys, there's something. It was a detail where I'm missing now. There was more details to this when I had written this. First, there was the artist, there was the. Some detail is changing where there was a transformation where what was in the story set as New York, Wall Street transformed into a religious place, where in the year 5025, Wall Street is like the most sacred ancient relic of humanity or something. What used to be, what is now corrupt, is then in that time set. But there was some correlation between the enlightened society emerging in this, which I can't remember. Anyways, as the first artist came into power, other nations began becoming artists. And for the first time, the world cared for beauty rather than, in some sense, power. Power became the disciple of beauty, man. Keep in mind, guys, this is a sci-fi context, what I'm saying in this part of the talk. Really, it's just how advanced we become. Whether we're communicating with animals, whether we're communicating with abstract, subjective symbolism, autonomous forms from the unconscious. Whatever it is, there is a circulation. There is a circulation of nature. There is a current. And I would say we are energetically rhythmic creatures, rhythmic beings. I can't even say creature. The mind is, Terence McKenna spoke about this idea of the transcendental object at the end of time. I think that transcendental object at the end of time can instantly be accessed in any moment. It doesn't need to wait for the outer realms. You don't need to wait for the outer realms to be timeless, spaceless, non-dual. There's so many side stories to this whole thing on sci-fi setting I'm saying. Where I'm just saying, okay, in a long enough time span, everything's gonna become weird. The future of a known species is unknown exploration. That is really the ultimate command for the outer realms. The purpose of our outer realms is to see more out of the room we're in. The purpose of the inner realms is symbiosis. It would be like dancing with a partner, but the partner is the whole world. And so I would say the civilization is at a state of distrust. People don't trust the ecosystem that is man-made, that has the man-made development. Now we have to find some strategy to trust it. That means even if the citizen, even if the leaders of a nation are corrupt, the citizen has to be like, shit, okay, somebody has to hold the torch of honesty in the moment. That means I would say it's something strange, but it's like there's no point for any rebellion. There should be demonstrations. What does that mean? That means no sort of fighting anything, just a performance. I feel literally any protest that happens, cameras follow. People should play theatrical performances of the suffering that's going on instead of rioting in the street. You know? You know what I'm saying? Like if it's mind communicating to mind, it can't just have a physical solution. If minds are involved, minds should be involved. We have to strangely act more advanced than our civilization, so as if there is the energetic signal for this to get there. Do you know what I mean? That means it's like the potential has fulfilled its purpose by being. And it's just the kinetic dimension to life. You see, the mind is so advanced, and patience is the secret. I will tell you, any problem you have as a person, if you had endless endurance and you just looked at the problem, let's say you put a problem, you wrote down a problem, let's say math problem, okay, whatever, okay? Okay, let's say 2 plus x equals 4, okay? And so let's say you looked at this and you're like, what am I looking at? What are these hieroglyphics, you know? And so I'm saying, imagine if you were someone with endless endurance. You would come and look at it. You would feel like a fool. Tomorrow would come. You would go and look at it. You would feel like a fool again. You go and look at it again. You feel like a fool. You feel like a fool until at some point the cup of your concentration is filled to the brim, and that's where originality kind of pours out. When you have reached the edge of the forest of your own conception, and now the next step is in uncharted territory, and that's where I would say the true voice of communication, it's natural rhythm at the end, you know? That means if, let's say there's 2 writers, and one of them says, when I write, I feel like, you know, an incredible, you know, I feel very proud. And imagine one writer is like, when I write, I don't, okay, I'll give you an example. Well, let's say we have 2 writers. The first writer, he's like, I think about things, look at everything, process, do all the research, and I write. And then there's another writer where we're like, how do you write? And the writer is like, I actually don't think about anything. I just like look at a film behind my eyes, do you know? And an emotion comes and just automatically I write it. And I would tell you, if somebody told me which one is the better writer, which one has understood writing as an art form, I would say the one who is emotionally writing, because it's not about the accuracy of what we already know. Because it's a changing world, whatever you know, great, you can hope for it to stay constant. But new dimensions are endlessly, you know, visiting us. new dimensions of perception, you know. Sometimes I feel like I'm in a glass orb rolling around in the world. So ultimately, the great work is the question of what is the great work. If you were an individual asking that, if you were the whole species asking that, the answer is the same. To max out the speed and the multidimensionality of the system and aim towards the inconceivable. Imagine there was someone who didn't get afraid and it was strange. And somebody came and asked him, it's like, how do you not have fear? And the person's like, because before fear, I've noticed the hourglass. And the hourglass laughs at the face of fear. Whatever story, whatever chaos you're scared of, the temporary nature of how existence stops is the ultimate of attention. A sort of ultimatum of attention. That means we are preparing for liftoff. And life is like a momentum. Think as if you're just running so fast that you're like somehow you're about to shoot up into the air. You know? Let's say there was a ramp and you were running so fast that when you just went off the ramp, you just went outside of the atmosphere. Probably not possible, but you know. In the inner realms, you know. And pretty much it's like either the world gives a purpose to the self or the self gives a purpose to the world. And if the individual self can give a collective purpose to the world and live in accordance to that, that means what it's going to start out is, here's the cool thing. Let's say we're 8 billion human beings, we all have a decent nature enough to care for the future, to see what an advanced civilization would look like. You know, so let's say 8 billion human beings decided to build an advanced civilization. Right now, we're at a point where it's like 8 billion soldiers thrown on our sphere, and these 8 billion soldiers are each seeing their own advanced civilization, taking steps towards that to eventually find, you can say, the ultimate advanced civilization. The true advanced civilization. And because everybody is climbing the mountain towards the peak is the advanced civilization, and everybody from their inner realms is walking towards this potential collective outcome. It's as if, imagine there was a myth, you know, that when human beings work together, everything was alright. Yeah. And we're like, oh my god, let's see if this is possible, you know? And you know, it's like, why are you here if there is nothing to do, really? That's why the void is not enough. It's too easy to be in nihilism. It takes no effort. But things that take effort, they also require precision and piloting. I'm telling you, if people stop believing in different ideological systems and just notice they are a piloting presence of attention to the day, excuse me, you're just attention roaming. Like there's something strange where when the person realizes that, I say, reality becomes surreality. It becomes surreal for you. You know? I think honestly anybody who even studies chemistry, it's a surreal realization. It's like the person's like, oh my god, if I control myself, I'm controlling the elements because I'm made of elements, you know? Yeah, I'm an elementalist, you know? Technically, you know, I can, you know, move matter, but I move as it. That means if you think about it, like let's say there's right now in front of me there's a water bottle, right? So like I'm holding this bottle in my hand and I raise it into the air, let's say a little bit in the air. Okay? Now, technically I got the same result as levitating this bottle. I'm holding it with my hand in the air, but technically the bottle is in the same result and position it would be if I had used, like, let's say, you know, let's say right now took my hand off and the bottle stayed on me, you know? So you see, we can actually see the effect, you know? That means it's like, does it matter if the person uses force, some invisible force to move a bottle in the air, or the person uses their hand? Now there is this story of the Tower of Babylon where it says human beings were united under one universal language. Then they made this tower towards the clouds and the gods uh, broke that one universal language, and human beings can work together. So I'm saying that we have to find a language that can't be broken. We have to build civilization as close as we can to nature. As close as we can, not as separate, not as different from it. That means I would honestly say, pretty much children in school should only learn, think of it this way, imagine from grade 1 to 12, children just are learning medical sciences. They're learning about the biological human body, health, how to keep biological health active. You know, let's say for 12 years. Now, check this out. We've had, let's say by then, let's say this is in the future, an ingenious way that when the child comes to study the let's say like the nervous system, that nervous system is a metaphor for endless other subjects, where a person can look at their hand and they can see it as a metaphor, as branching out into different fields. You know, I'm just saying pretty much we're using random symbols, we're drawing on paper. You know, I'm saying why don't we make the alphabet of knowledge biology? Based on biological symbolism, so everybody has to know biology before they, in some sense, can have any other view on anything else. You know? This is, of course, a view. I'm just sharing you. Anyways, guys, let's bring this to an end. There's a quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson. He says, "Let us be silent, that we may hear the whispers of the gods." Let us allow the individual self that has desired a sort of personal salvation for so long. Let us allow that personal striving self to just be silent, and let us just for a moment hear the whispers of the gods, which is another way of saying when the world makes its chess move. That is true karma. Someone like being rude and slipping on a banana it's like that karma is nothing compared to when the unknown moves. And that the moment the unknown moves, the known you will break. All ideology of self will break. There will come a fear of existential authority. And so that's where all the sincerity and all the honesty in your life could have cultivated. To just, if you saw where you were or not. You know, it is not a little task. It is the greatest thing that human beings can do. It's the most greatest challenge. It is the hardest puzzle. It's the emergence of the most advanced human civilization ever known. That means pretty much, honestly, in these talks, I feel like a person, if this was back in the day, a person with a lantern in the street and not even shouting to people, shouting to myself, what is everything doing here? And that question breaks worlds. That means if you can fearlessly just be like, okay, I'm alive in a cosmos. I'm aware right now as a being. I should know what this is. And if it moves beyond ideological knowing, your eyes have opened regardless of if they can close or not. You realize eyes that could never close, pretty much. Or Alan Watts said it great in one of his talks. He said it's like, imagine what it's like to go to sleep and never waking up. Now imagine what it's like to waking up as if having never gone to sleep, something like that. Waking up as if you were never asleep. Just try to wonder what that would feel like. And you will see it goes beyond the language threshold. You know, says poetry tunnel on silence. Honestly, guys, I can't go into a poetry tunnel right now. But I will maybe move the pen. $8 billion years in the making. Oh, excuse me. 4.5 billion years in the making. The void couldn't laugh harder. The stars cried as they realized their light was going nowhere. Suddenly, a laughter was heard everywhere, in all universes, in all potential realities. And that laughter was the laughter of space. Even time, the narrator of matter, this laughter was coming from even behind time's shoulder, let us say. And so when space laughs, that's when even chaos breaks. That's when non-dual, unknown authority, it's like there's another memory here. It's like we are alive in a field. And so if the person just has just has tools or ways of approach as just an object, it's like we have moved past being an object here. Way past being an object here. And love is the testament to that. Anyways, guys, thanks for listening. I hope this episode was helpful. Let me do one thing before I end off. Let me see if... Okay. So, I'm gonna read for you a quote from Khalil Gibran, something from his poetry on silence. He says, "The silence of aloneness reveals to their eyes their naked selves, and they would escape. And there are those who talk and without knowledge or forethought reveal a truth which they themselves do not understand. And there are those who have the truth within them, but they tell it not in words. And of course, all words know where they come from. For I would say the most deepest realization one can have of sound and language is that the silence has always been here. Your silence is where you get to breathe in a moment where you can't lie to anyone. You can't like, here's the thing, it's language is limited, so whatever is believed as language is limited, so it's never the truth, you see. But I'm saying, like, if language is seen as a finger pointing to the silence, then language was just a mirror. There's this other quote by Khalil Gibran. He says, "Your hearts know excuse me. Your hearts know in silence the secrets of the days and the nights, but your ears thirst for the sound of your heart's knowledge. You would know in words that which you have always known in thought. You would touch with your fingers the naked body of your dreams, and it is well that you should. The hidden wellspring of your soul must, the hidden wellspring of your soul must and needs rise and run murmuring to the sea." Okay, the hidden wellspring of your soul must needs rise and run. It's written that way again. Rise and run murmuring to the sea. And the treasure of your infinite depths would be revealed to your eyes. But let there be no scales to weigh your unknown treasure. And seek not the depths of your knowledge with staff or sounding line. For self is a sea boundless and measureless. Yeah. So that means, it's like, even though, guys, I'm talking about an advanced civilization, Khalil Gibran is reminding the audience, like, it's endless when it comes to what it could be. So it's like we are creatures in a finite experience of what appears to be an infinite existence, an infinite existential activity. Just like our planet is an empty space, all our concepts are in empty space. Lastly, guys, I'll share this and end off. Khalil Gibran says, "One day you will ask me which is more important, my life or yours. I will say mine, and you will walk away not knowing that you are my life." He also says, "Let there..." hold on. Out of suffering have emerged the strongest souls. The most massive characters are seared with scars. Guys, don't forget Space is still laughing. So anyways, thanks for listening. I hope this episode was helpful. I'll be in the Discord server for those interested. Blessings.